I made 35,000 posts over 40 months and grew a 7.8 million person audience. And 3 weeks ago, I made 6 big shifts in my content. And I want to show you behind the scenes what we found from those 6 big shifts with screenshots of the data so that you can use this to make more money in your business and whatever you promote. And so the first was we went from edutainment to education. So instead of being kind of halfway through to all the way all in on education. Now that had downstream impacts in terms of how we packaged, how we title things, even the number of special effects we have. And the purpose of education as I see it is to change behavior. And so my point is with this video, once I show you the data of what's happened since that change, since we made these 6 shifts, that hopefully, or hopefully not, we'll see what you decide to do, but it will change how you make content to make more money. So number 1 is edutainment to education. Number 2 is we went from for us to for you. Now when I say for us, what ended up happening with the mistakes I made was that, unknowingly, was that I would be like, team, what do you guys think about content? And so they'd be like, hey, we should make a video on this. Hey, we should make a video on this. And so what ended up happening is I started making videos for my team, not my ideal customer, a business owner. And so I actually had a friend come into town and say, hey, you know, it's weird. I actually haven't been paying attention to your content. He does about $10 million a year. And I was like, he's like, well, I guess I'm not really your avatar. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like, you are 100% my avatar. What's going on? And so as soon as I realized that, I was like, oh man. He's like, it just didn't feel as relevant to me. And so I was making stuff for my team rather than my avatar. And so if you are somebody who makes content, something to be mindful of is your team might not be the type of people you're trying to make content for. So just something interesting for me. So it went from for us, our team, to for you, the viewer, for business owners. Number 3, we went from wide to narrow. So fitness, relationships, et cetera, those are wider topics. More people are in a relationship, more people eat food, more people are trying to lose weight, compared to only 9% of people are business owners. And so we went much narrower on the topic of like, I'm just talking about business, because that's what I love talking about too, as a side note. And so it turns out business owners like it more when I talk about business, and I like it more as a business owner. So everybody wins, at least for me. Number 4 is we went from views to revenue. Now this was key. So when you just have views as a metric, then you kind of do chase wider because it was the only real metric we were tracking. And we didn't really have anything better at the time, and so that's what we focused on. Since then, we've transitioned to ad revenue, and here's why. Ad revenue takes into account views, but it has a second metric that's paired with it, which is RPMs, which is revenue per 1,000 eyeballs. So if YouTube pays lots of money for the eyeball, then it means they're more valuable. And if they're more valuable to the advertiser, they're more valuable to me. And so my idea here is that I want to make sure that we're showing our videos to the right people, or rather that the right people are watching. Now, once we can control for that and we keep our RPMs, or the amount the advertisers are willing to pay for these eyeballs, high, then we get as many views as we can. And as a total pro tip for business stuff in general, paired KPIs works exceptionally well. So if you're in customer success, you want the speed of resolution, but you also want a quality metric. If you had a company that did cleaning, it'd be the same thing. Is you'd pair reviews from customers with the number of cleans per day. And so you like to have both edges so that you can control for both sides. And you should do that with any department you can. Now, so I said number 4 was views to ad revenue as our primary metric that we were optimizing for. So we no longer cared, oh, this one had a lot of views. We don't care about that. It's just, do we have as many views with the right people? Number 5 is we went from emphasizing shorts to emphasizing longs. We saw that longs got the best people, and the whole thesis around shorts creates longs viewers, we actually haven't seen any evidence that supports that. People who watch shorts want more shorts, people who want longs want more longs, which doesn't necessarily mean that people from a different platform don't watch you on shorts on TikTok, and then they're a long form YouTube watcher, and then watch your stuff on YouTube that long. But usually, people who watch long form stuff on YouTube watch long form stuff on YouTube. People who watch shorts form on YouTube watch short form. Some people watch both, but most of the time people kind of have consumption preferences, and they're not going to change their preferences for you. They just might watch you in a different place where that consumption preference is what you make. And so we found that, and we found that the longs are the things that actually drove the most applications for acquisition.com, and the most book sales, and the most opt-ins. So that's what we're making more of. And number 6 was assuming more versus assuming nothing. Meaning, I made videos like the Alex Hormozi diet. I made the Alex Hormozi vlog, the Hormozis, things like that. Those assume that somebody who doesn't know me will want to care what whoever the hell Alex Hormozi is, which I don't think is that reasonable. Like, I don't think they would want that, because who cares about this random dude? And so it's assuming nothing. Now that has changes in terms of what we're making. So there's no assumptions. So for example, like we own acquisition.com, we have portfolio businesses. I introduce myself because if you don't know who I am, this might be the first video you see of me. And so if I stopped doing that for a while, because I kind of went into this mindset that everyone knew. Now, obviously that's dumb. Way more people don't know me than know me. But you kind of fall into this trap of assuming you're talking to your warm audience rather than what you're making the content for, which is people who've never met you before. And so keeping that top of mind, which is that we want to make sure that we welcome everyone and that we don't have inside jokes that only people who are on the inside feel it, because then all it does is it excludes people that are new. And like what you want to do is bring more people into your world anyways, especially if they're business owners for me. And so there are the 6 changes that we made in our content. And so we've gone all in on that concept. And so we've done a lot of rapid iteration, but let me tell you the data that's happened since. So right off the bat, RPMs, meaning the revenue per 1,000 viewers, went up by 68%. So like when you think, man, I don't feel like I can, like what my content is about, like it doesn't change anything. Well, it sure as hell did for us. When I talk about deep business stuff, when I talk about reducing churn, when I talk about increasing number of times, like ways to get someone to buy more times, when I talk about how we scaled a 40-person sales team and all the steps that we did in order to do that in a real case study in a real business, when I talk about how you can deconstruct and reconstruct a brand, these are deeper business concepts. And guess what? Business owners watch them. And guess what? Those eyeballs are more valuable. 68%, and we're only gonna get better at it. And so for us, boom, that meant that us changing our topics got the right people to watch the videos. Checkbox 1. And so you can see by the video title, when we had educational versus kind of wide, or business education versus wider topics, the wider topics in general had way lower RPMs. You can see that with the light blue, whereas the purple is more money making, more business, more sales, more retention, real business tactics that grow companies. And those, unsurprisingly, were way higher in average RPM. Some of them even higher than that. So the next big change, and I see this as anecdotal, is that 25% more comments per view. And so I see that as an engagement metric, that we had way more people saying, wow, this is good, or this is great, or I miss this style of content. That's actually a really common thing. And I will say this is my decrement. I should have seen that more business owners were telling us in the comments what they wanted. And honestly, I just wasn't listening. And that's on me. I was like, well, you're gonna lose some people as you make more high production stuff, that's okay. But with the return to hardcore business education in terms of the content that we're making, the response has been overwhelming, that so many people were like, I'm coming back to all your content, this has been great, this is what I came here for, and so I'm stoked about that. And so we got 25% more people who are doing that, we have more shares, negligible, and slightly fewer likes, which again, whatever. But for me, I would rate comments and shares as higher. And so overall, we had higher engagement from these videos, even though they were narrower topics, which to me is more good for fewer people than a little bit of good for a lot of people, which is where I want to be in terms of what I want to serve or who I want to serve. So the next big change is that despite, and this is a key point, despite having fewer absolute views per long form video, we're actually getting more long form views overall across the channel. So we're up almost 30%, 29.56%, than our 6 weeks average before that, from these deeper educational videos. Now, realistically, that's a function of one main thing, in my opinion. That's because the education stuff actually requires far less post-editing. And I can make more education stuff because this is what I do every day. And so we can actually create more content, which I'm stoked about. And I mean, hopefully business owners are too. And so we actually get more overall views with the right people because we don't have nearly as much hi-fi post-production whiz-bangs, which is what most of my audience who was trying to learn stuff rather than be entertained was happy about. All right, this next one is very surprising, to me at least. So our subscriber conversion increased by 24.6%. And so that means that we've actually, like, even though, again, we had slightly lower absolute views, more long-form views, that we actually increased the absolute number of subscribers per week since doing this. So like, I mean, I was very comfortable with all of these metrics tanking. Like I honestly expected that because I was like, all right, well, we're gonna have way fewer views, but it's gonna be the right people. But because 25% more people who watch subscribe, even though we get fewer views, our actual subscriber growth has grown, which is crazy in an absolute metric way. So this was an unexpected outcome for me and has just reinforced that this was the right decision for the audience that I want, which is business owners. The next thing is like, okay, well, if you're getting fewer views, how is that gonna translate to opt-ins? Because I'm a business owner, like that's what I care about. I care about people who are trying to become portfolio companies, come to a workshop, whatever. And so it turns out that we have 26% more opt-ins per week since making this change. And so this is like both incredibly surprising and also incredibly duh. And I say this because like saying, hey, I'm gonna make business owner stuff to get more business owners, duh. But at the same time, I'll say this, just me kind of commenting on a lot of the educators that are in the space, they tend to start moving more and more broad, more and more wide, more and more entertainment-y, more and more topics that they don't necessarily have expertise on because they seek the views. Whether they say it or not, they don't want to sit there like likes and cash because they still kind of count their likes. And so I think if you can just absolutely get your logic head on, which is tough because sometimes it's tough to go away from those vanity metrics. But I care about the bottom line, and so the right people were seeing it and the right people were taking action. And so we, in the business sense, saw growth from this in a big way. And this is just like 4 weeks into this kind of execution all in on the strategy, and this will compound. And so for those who don't know, I have 2 best-selling books on Amazon. They're still like #1 and #2 on marketing and sales, and they've been there for like #1 and #2 for 2 years or 3 years or whatever, how they've been out. So they're pretty strong. And so we sell books every month no matter what. But what was crazy to me was to see this jump in book sales that happened as, like, think about this. We're getting fewer views, but more sales by a lot, like 2x the sales, twice, not like 20%, twice the sales of books that I have. And mind you, by the way, if you're like, hey, I'm poor, I get it. My books are free too. They're like, you can go to acquisition.com and you get the video course, all my stuff for free. You don't have to opt in. And you can go on my podcast and you can listen to the audiobook for free. All right, like the stuff's free. This isn't how I make my money. But it's a really good leading indicator for me of the quality of traffic. Now, if you want to get a physical copy, yes, there's printing costs and there's shipping costs, so yeah, you pay some bucks. But if you're dead broke poor, you can use the free stuff. The point is that this attracted the right people who want, because if I make a fitness meals video, guess what those people don't care about? Getting leads and making offers. Kind of sounds obvious when you think about it. When I make hey, this is how I work with Layla, my wife, maybe you get somebody who's like, what about the married entrepreneurs? It's like, well, only 9% of people are business owners. And then of that 9%, how many of them are married to their partner? Percentage to percentage. Versus just talking about business stuff, business people want to get more leads, make more offers, make more money. And so that's what my books are about. And so lo and behold, more of those people bought. Now, I want to be super clear. I want to show these two keynotes here. So there are some keynotes that will be both deep and wide. And as a content creator slash business owner slash investor slash husband slash human being, anyway, boy big, sometimes you hit it out the park and you actually get both. So my highest revenue per view video also happens to be my most viewed video. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a lot of views, the RPMs are low. No, not at all. You can get a video that applies to all business owners and it will get a lot of views. And the CPMs or the RPMs will be high. The branding video is the same thing. That's very recent. It's new and it continues to climb up. And both of these are very conceptual business concepts that all business owners can benefit from. And so if I talk about leverage, almost all businesses need to understand strategy and leverage. It's a huge amount of value to business owners. Understanding brand, tremendous value to any business. Now, on the other hand, you can also make, and we call these keynotes, but like longer form, either whiteboard presentations or like a presentation that I put a lot of time into. Some of them are going to be deeper and less wide, and that's okay. Like if I talk about scaling a 40-person sales team, if you have an e-commerce store, doesn't affect you. But leverage and brand would affect you whether you had the 40-person sales team or the e-commerce company or a software company or an app or whatever. And so again, the scaling the 40-person sales team, still super valuable, but it's just going to be only valuable to 1/3 of the business owner audience that I might be able to, who might want to watch this. Same thing with the video I made about 10xing your business overnight by using mega influencers. Basically showing how to get a Mr. Beast, a Logan Paul, a Rock to partner with, a Conor McGregor, a Huda Beauty, a Taylor Swift to partner with to 10x your business. Now, if you're a business like a local business, the likelihood that they're going to partner with you is really low. Right? And so it doesn't really make sense for that particular business. Now you could use that on a micro scale, but it might just not have as much transference. If you have an e-commerce brand that's national, might make a ton of sense. But again, it's going to have a subsegment of already a 9% slice of the population that it would be deeply valuable to though. And so that's the thing is that I have to think about, like, I'm okay with a video that gets 10,000 views instead of 400,000 views. If 10,000 of those people are $10 million plus business owners, it's like, here's how I packaged my company in order to sell it. I have a video on my channel that walks through 46 minutes of the decision-making process I use to determine to sell my business. Guess who that applies to? Basically no one, unless you actually have a lot of money and you already have a business asset that has $5 million in profit or more. And so let's see, 9% of businesses, it's like 0.1% do $10 million a year of businesses. So there's like no one who that actually applies to except for those people who are like, this thing was amazing, this changed my life. And I had a bunch of people after I posted that I know that were big 20, 30, $40 million a year business owners who watched it be like, this is insane, I can't believe you gave this out. I'm like, believe it, because guess what? No one else is gonna watch it. And so I will say this is me giving you like a little hat tip for consuming. If you're a business owner, I would not gauge views as whether the video is good or not. It just shows how relevant it is to how many people. And so if you're an e-commerce person, I have some videos in here about how to use offers for e-commerce. That's just already gonna be a slice of a slice, but it'd be super applicable for you. And so I'm okay with very small views as long as the quality gives value and provides a result in a clear way for the viewer. And so I define education as change of behavior. So if I can help them change their behavior in a way that makes them more money, ideally they'll associate that money they made, that value they made, with us at acquisition.com. And so that's the whole goal of this stuff. And for the creators out there, or those of you guys who are making content in order to promote your business, I'll give you this frame that I started out with that helped me a lot, which is, when I posted my first, I started at zero on every platform, to be very clear here. Like, it wasn't like I was Taylor Swift and I came on TikTok, yay, right? It wasn't like that. When I started on YouTube, I had no subscribers. And the first videos I posted got like 100 views, right? But I thought to myself, I was like, man, if I would probably go across town to speak to a 100-person audience for lunch, and I'd have no problem with that. And so the idea that I had 100 people, I was like, that's not bad. Or even if there's 10 people, I'm like, well, I would talk to a 10-person. I mean, I used to do this for years. I would do a lunch and learn and see if I could sell some weight loss. You know what I mean? Like, I was willing to do that anyways. And so there's this, it's literally just because of comparison that people feel bad about their social media content, not because inherently the numbers don't make sense. And the crazy thing about this, and I just want to reemphasize, is it's free. It's free. The platforms distribute your content for free. These are people that would never have found out about you, and they find out about you for free. Like, take that in for a second. So the leverage on free distribution is infinite. And so if you get 1,000 people over a month who see your thing, it's 1,000 people. It's not nothing. And so I try to make sure that I focus on that concept of like, oh man, my average for the channel is 400,000 and we got a 50,000 view video. 50,000? My God, I speak at conferences with 1,000 people. It's 50 times that. Not bad. And those people, I got to have a really, really curated experience, increase the value per second, absolutely crush as much value as I possibly could in that time period. And so I'll make one last note on the deep versus wide content, is that I get so many DMs and like Slack messages even from our portfolio company founders who are like, dude, that last video was so sick. And I hadn't had that in a minute for probably the 6 months where we went a little bit wider with our content. And it became so reinforcing for me, even though like, what's the number of people? I don't know, 50 people maybe messaged me being like, dude, that new like your new content style, or going back, like the new old content of more whiteboard, more deep business tactics. Like, it's so great. My team's watching it again. That like fills me up, because that's why I made this stuff to begin with, was the stuff that I didn't have when I was coming up that I wish someone had taught me. And then I had to just find out through trial and error. And so that's why we make this stuff. But the views weren't high. But for me, like, I'm here for business owners. And I already know there's only 9% of people are business owners. And that's okay. I'm here for you guys. All right, so here's what we're doing next with this data. All right, so we had our hypothesis, we looked at the 35,000 posts, we made these 6 big shifts, and by and large, we have crushed the hypothesis. So I'm actually like, I was telling my team yesterday, I was like, we're kind of lucky that this worked out the first time, because like, I'm not really used to things working out the first time. More like realistically like, hey, we made this change, and then like 4 of the 6 stats are bad, and 2 of them are good. And so we're like, all right, well, these ones are good, so let's try and keep this stuff the same, and then we gotta tweak all these other things. Our view to subscriber ratio is higher, our absolute subscribers are higher, our opt-ins are higher, our book sales are higher, applications are higher. And it's about stuff I like making. So I'm like, I'm thrilled to tears, I'm stoked. And I get to make this stuff about, like, we can do more content because I don't have to put as much post into it for you guys. So like, you guys said it's more distracting to have the whiz bangs and the effects, and we're like, cool. I'm happy to just talk business. So this is what we're doing now. So one big belief we have is volume negates luck. That's in the sales team locker room, same thing in the media team, is that we will create more, and we will just basically have constraints on where, like the direction of what we're creating, but we will keep making as much as we can in different ways to find out what works even better than our first whack at it. The second thing is don't get the same scar twice. We're super happy to make mistakes. I mean, it's funny, I almost mean that. Like, it's totally fine making mistakes because like, they're not mistakes, they're just lessons. What we don't want is to get the same scar twice. And so if we find out or we know that I have to introduce myself, then I better keep introducing myself. If we know that hi-fi production doesn't do as well with business owners, then I better not do that, right? Unless there's a conclusion that we find that's wrong about that. But for now, like we're not gonna make the same mistake twice. And so I'm happy to make all the mistakes there are in a very narrow field, that's what makes an expert, but I just don't wanna make it twice. A third one, this is super tactical, is that slides versus just me heavily prepping for a presentation hasn't made as much of a difference. So I tried to approximate this by like my best videos that were most views and most business centric in terms of CPMs was me presenting at a conference. So I have a stage in my headquarters. And so I was like, all right, I'm gonna present on my stage, but it was not to an empty room, it was to my team. But like a lot of comments were like, is this guy pretending to be on stage? And so if you did see that, that's why the room was kind of empty. But I was trying to approximate as much of that style of video. So that gives you maybe a little bit of insight. I was like, okay, well, what can I control? I can do a stage, we can do the lighting, we can have the seats, I can have slides. These are all things that I'm used to doing. Now it worked to a degree, but we got the same performance from me just talking to a camera like this and going over the slides without the stage, or me just doing whiteboard of walking through the concepts or the tactics to grow or solve a problem. Number 4, show what only you can show and say what only you can say. And so I have a few marketing isms that I have never heard anywhere else that are like very real for me. One is state the facts and tell the truth. It's always that way. Because then you never get in trouble, you never have to worry about anything, you don't have to worry about claims, you just state the facts and tell the truth. Which also means that you have to go collect data so you can state the truth. And so a second one underneath of that is say what only we can say and show what only we can show. It's demonstration, right? And so if obviously I have accomplishments that I can say, hey, I know what I'm talking about, but there's also labor. And so I could say, hey, I built a 8 million person audience, listen to this stuff for content, which by the way, you don't have to listen to any of it, this just worked for me. Or I could say I made 35,000 posts, independent of the outcome. And so what I want to do is do more work than anyone else will do so that I can show what no one else can show and say what no one else can say. And so if you're starting out or you're at a different part in your journey, considering like, okay, well, I can't outcome anyone yet because I'm early, but you can outwork people. And so I can just say like, I made 35,000 posts, what I learned. I'm going to compress a lot of time for you. That's valuable, no matter who you are. And number 5 is still doing wide shorts. So this is interesting. So we thought about this and we decided that for shorts, we're willing to go a little bit wider. And I'll tell you why. So I run ads and Layla runs ads using our face. And I actually see the main ROI from shorts as top of funnel brand awareness. And when I say brand awareness, I really just mean like facial recognition. People will see my face and remember that they got some sort of value from it. And in a short, it's more difficult to get into really deep business concepts, which is what I'm, not to say it's impossible, and maybe I just need to up my skills, which is totally fine. But we're still maintaining a certain percentage of shorts that I would consider to be more like a little bit wider. Because I tend to like business philosophy too, and I don't want to stop. It's like, what are the things I like talking about? I like philosophy. I like wide business concepts. I like personal development shit and sort of in terms of like productivity, which is kind of a wider topic. But I'm not going to stop doing that because I do like making that stuff. And so I'll probably keep having shorts around that because the ROI is actually not from shorts turning into book sales or shorts turning into opt-ins. It's actually the shorts getting retargeted later with an ad that does go to something, but they're going to be more likely to recognize me and then take the next step in whatever the funnel is. Whether we're saying, hey, if you're starting a business, go check out school, which by the way, again, wide. If someone's trying to start a business, then it makes sense for it to be a little bit wider for people who are trying to get into it. And so then the school ads can hit those people and it makes sense for them to use school, right? If it's a business owner, I still think that from a business perspective, we have a lot of business content in terms of our shorts, but I want to just address this in case you see it so you're not confused about it. I still will have some wide content in short form because of the reason I just said. And so those are the kind of like the next steps. And if you guys find these kind of updates valuable with the metrics behind it, The TLDR of this whole video is that what we said worked. And if you're an educator, toss out the views, focus on your customer, make stuff for them, because likes ain't cash, views ain't cash, cash is cash. And so if you're trying to grow your business, make sure you're making the stuff for the people you actually want to make, not your ego.